Hello and welcome. This screencast is going to discuss the technical aspect of speech delivery, especially for a virtual environment. I do have another lecture that will go over more textbook content when it comes to the reasoning behind all the elements of delivery, but this screencast is simply how to do it. So if you want more of a theoretical discussion of why it's necessary, I have another video for that. If you are wanting the actual how-tos, that's what this video is for. So, to begin, what I want to do is preview for you what you can expect. What I'm going to do is essentially go through the nonverbal aspects of delivery that you can expect in a virtual environment. I'm going to give you a little bit of background information on how to dress and what to be aware of in your recording environment. And I'm going to ask you to spend some time focusing on what you can do to provide a crisp, clear, and professional screencast recording for any presentation that you have to do in a virtual environment. If you're not doing a recording and you have to deliver a live presentation, for example, a job interview or a live synchronous presentation, these tips will still apply. So, first things first, eye contact. It is theorized as one of the most important aspects of any type of nonverbal communication that will be conducted in a face to face or a virtual environment. Reason being is that we connect truthfully. We say that we stare into people's souls whenever we look into their eyes. Now, with eye contact, what you have to learn to do is to look at the webcam and not at yourself. Because this is what I look like if I'm watching myself and watching my recording and making sure everything's good here, as opposed to connecting with the camera. If you are delivering in a virtual environment for a job interview or a presentation or even a meeting, you're going to have to train yourself to resist the temptation to stare at you and instead bring those eyes to wherever the camera is. Where this is important is where your camera is located. There are some laptop computers that have the webcam built in between the screen and the keyboard, so it's down here, which means we're naturally going to get a lower view, so you have to watch your angle there. It changes the way that you look, the way your eye contact will be, and of course the recording that we receive, so you might want to consider having a separate webcam, or my personal favorite, get creative. I have more colleagues that have utilized stacks of books for their webcams than anything else. So I'm lucky enough to have one that I can clamp wherever I want to on a screen or any support system. But if you have a built-in webcam at a poor angle where looking down is not going to be a favorable angle for you, then you need to learn how to prop that up on a stack of books, clamp it with binder clips, or do something to get a more appealing view. Other items with eye contact and how to practice would be how much eye contact do you need with an outline or the camera. The camera represents your audience, so it's very easy for us to fall into a habit of having our outlines open on the screen kind of next to us. And so we sit here and we do this. So if I have my outline open as a separate document on my computer screen, or even down here, you can clearly see that my eyes are not connecting with you or even the screen any longer, and I'm clearly reading whatever it is I want to say next. If it's on the computer and I have had the sense to put it on the computer instead of down, if I'm on the computer, then you can clearly watch my eyes track along as I follow the words, and you're going to hear the difference in the tone of voice because people are going to sound like they're reading. My encouragement for you is to use an extemporaneous style of presenting. Extemporaneous speaking means that it is prepared, but it is not written out like a manuscript. A manuscript is when a speech is written out word for word, just like an essay or a paper. And it is a very effective presentation strategy whenever your information has to be powerfully accurate. Think of political presentations where they read their speeches because every word is going to be evaluated by the press and by their constituents. Extemporaneous speaking is what we focus on in my classes, where you develop a speech outline that pretty much tells us where you want to go and what you want to say, but it doesn't have everything written out word for word. The expectation is that you will have rehearsed enough to be comfortable with the content in order to deliver, say, 90% of it to a camera or to an audience without having to refer to your notes. And yes, it will require practice. For example, I have an outline here today for what I want to cover in this screencast. My outline has 8 words on it. That's it. Because if I write out a manuscript or an essay, I'm going to be tempted to look down and read it or look on the screen and read it. If I only have 8 words, I have to know what I'm talking about in order to get this screencast done. So I recommend that less is more when it comes to your outline. My recommendation is that you print your outline out, you highlight and note take on it to emphasize important pieces of information or trouble words that you might encounter, and you present with it in your hand. An example could be having something just like a piece of paper in your hand that you keep down here out of camera view, and you have practiced it enough to know where to keep your eyes to that camera, not yourself, to the camera. Come on, look up, eyes up, to the camera, focusing there. But whenever you need an important piece of information, you can glance down, and thanks to your clever highlighting and annotating, find your information quickly and then bring your attention back to the camera. I advise you practice your presentations at least 5 to 7 times before presenting them for a recording or for a classroom. That rule tends to hold fast. One of the benefits of submitting recordings for presentations is that you can, and quite frankly, you should, watch them and pick up your own habits and tics. To move from eye contact to body movement, here's my transition. One of the things that I have noticed through doing copious numbers of recordings and screencasts for online instruction is that my head tilts, and it typically tilts this way. That to me, for some reason, is so comfortable, and almost always, whenever I'm expressing or teaching, my head tilts in this direction. Now, I didn't really notice that until I started watching myself, and I was like, why is my head tilting? And then I have to practice bring it in here and trying to get it even and watching myself to figure out what my nonverbals are. Secondly, when it comes to body movement, especially in a virtual environment, you have to figure out what to do with your hands. I do not want you to have a camera view that is so tight on your body that I only get the talking head, because then I can't grade the rest of your nonverbals. So you need to make sure that your camera view at least has your shoulders and preferably part of your torso involved so that you have more to work with. I recommend that you practice with hand gestures. My favorite with hand gestures is to give your hands a home. If you're writing notes, you should write down, give your hands a home. The home base is a place that your hands go when you're not gesturing. So instead of having shaky, nervous, sweaty hands or kind of like putting them in pockets or giving this nervous movement, you give your hands a home. And sometimes that's in view, but more often that will be outside of view. However, do not hold still this way the entire time. Feel free to use your hands to naturally gesture and express yourself so that the public speaking feels conversational. Use your hands to emphasize important points, to number things if you're going to go over multiple items in a row, and just to feel more human than sitting stock still with just this headshot. When it comes to movement in a virtual presentation, you can, if lucky and with enough space, you can angle your camera to where you can get far enough back from it where you can actually move like a normal presenter would. And that is perfectly fine. Your catch would be your audio. Can we still hear you if you are that far away? Now, in the room that I do my recordings in, I probably would have enough space to do some movement recordings. However, I have chosen to provide myself with a background of a bookcase and my printer and the rest of it, so that way I can focus on just upper body communication. If you'll notice, I don't do a lot of swaying and swinging in my chair, even though that temptation is huge. And I don't constantly gesture like this all the time. My hands are moving, but not all the time. So you need to make sure that how much you're moving your head, your face, your shoulders, your hands is in control. And you're only going to learn your habits by watching yourself. So I advise to rehearse your presentation a few times, 5 to 7 times before recording, and then having enough time to do multiple recordings and watch yourself. Can you see that your eye contact drifted over to your notes? Can you see that you're watching yourself instead of connecting to the camera? Did you realize that you were so nervous that you stood right here and didn't use your hands at all? Or were you nervous and animated and talking like this for the entire presentation? So watch your own recordings, use the gift of technology, and figure out what your habits are. The biggest one that I see people mention on Facebook whenever COVID first struck and virtual learning became the norm would be how often we blink in recordings. And it is true. You don't really realize how often you blink until you record yourself and that's all you can see are your eyelids going. So, one of the things you do train yourself to do is to make that longer period of eye contact with the camera, but clearly you have to blink. It's kind of a natural thing. So, with eye contact and movement and gestures out of the way, I want to talk a little bit about your facial expressions. Your face and your voice, well, quite frankly, we'll go ahead and tie those two together. They should match each other. And your face and your voice should match your words. If you're talking about something serious, your tone of voice should be serious as well, and so should your facial expression. If you're talking about something that's kind of perky and bouncy and fun, then your voice should reflect that, and so should your eyes and your face. Notice now I'm smiling. My eyebrows have arched a little bit. You can see the wrinkles in my forehead because I'm creasing my face. My gestures are more animated, and the pitch of my voice is higher because this is interesting. This is exciting. But going back down, if I'm talking to you about something that is important, that is necessary, that I have to be a little bit more strict about, then I will slow down the rate of my speech. I will drop the tone of my voice. The pitch will lower. I will use less animated hand gestures. And again, face, voice, and words are all in one accord. When it comes to your voice, there are a lot of beautiful warm ups you can do. If you take a self assessment, what happens to you whenever you want to deliver a presentation and those nerves take over? Does your voice crack? Do you stutter? What happens to you? Julian Treasure is one of my absolute favorite presenters because his focus is on the beauty of the human voice. And he has a TED Talk you can find on YouTube that is entitled How to Speak So That People Will Listen. And that TED Talk goes over tools you can put in your vocal toolbox in order to do warm ups to make sure that everything is warm and loose and ready to go. And it's a fantastic 10-minute presentation that I would really encourage you to spend your time looking at if you haven't already, because he will break down the actual warm ups and technical aspects of vocal delivery in more detail than I have time to do so. Another item to keep in mind, so by now we've covered eye contact, look at the camera, not your outline. We've covered gestures, use them, not too much. We have covered face and voice. Make sure they match your words and that you don't just monotone and monoface for the entire presentation. You have to be engaged. And that means, yes, you're sitting in a chair and it's awkward because you have no audience, you have no responses, but you still force that engagement the entire time. You can perform for 5 minutes. So, what I want to transition from for those items would be your posture and then your clothing, a background, and noise. So, posture is incredibly important because humans in general tend to slouch, especially in front of a computer. We kind of collapse on top of ourselves. And what happens is when we do that slouching, it takes our rib cages and it compresses our lungs, which means it reduces the amount of oxygen that we can take in. If we reduce our oxygen intake, that clearly is going to affect your energy level, your volume, your ability to think effectively, and nerves control because oxygen deprivation clearly is going to affect everything. So, what you want to do, if you'll do this with me, even though you're at home, or maybe you're on a bus somewhere, whatever it is, I kind of want you to get your hands, put them on your shoulders, and I want you to just push your shoulders back just a little bit. Not like all the way here, we're not doing an arch, but just push your shoulders up and back a little bit. You're wanting to straighten them out. My left shoulder just popped when I did that. That's healthy. Because whenever, oh, I can feel it right there. You can hear me just take the deep breath. Is whenever you kind of push your rib cage open and you lift that rib cage off of your lungs go, oh, finally. Okay, now I can kind of bring in that oxygen and feel better. So, as a presenter, you want to train yourself to sit up with solid posture. So, shoulders back, rib cage open. It does take poise. Generally, if I turn my seat here, you can see that I am not leaning against my seat. I'm not back here all relaxed and I'm not slouching forward. My shoulders have come back. There's a gap between me and the seat. So when I come here, I am sitting forward for this entire presentation. You'll see, if you could see, I have my toes dug into the carpet here so that I can push forward and engage my leg muscles. It might sound like overkill, but I'm engaging my body the way I would be if I was standing up in front of people. It's excellent practice, and it actually makes it feel more natural because you're not just slouching in a seat. Now, when it comes to the way that you should dress yourself, always look like a professional when delivering a presentation. Even if you're comfortable recording from your couch or your bedroom or your kitchen, you should still look like a professional. That is your challenge. That's the whole point of public speaking online, is your ability to still be a professional in that context. So, what you need to do is, again, posture, strong, but then dress according to the occasion. While a business suit might not be required unless it's a job interview context, you still want to be business casual for any of these recordings or presentations. It helps your mind and your body get into the context that this is a professional setting. And even if you're in your kitchen, you're not in your pajamas giving this presentation. Do not wear a hat that shades your face, because now I can't see your facial expressions, which cuts my ability to communicate with you. If you have a lot of hair, find a way to pin it back or put it in a ponytail or whatever you can do in order to get it out of your face. I prefer to have my hair down and kind of everywhere. But whenever I give presentations or videos, I always pin it back so that I'm not doing this the entire presentation. I'm not playing with it, pushing it back, getting out of my eyes, tucking it behind something. I've just taken it out of the equation. It can no longer get in my way, which means it's a good thing now. So with your clothes, make sure that they fit appropriately so you're not getting pinched the entire time you're trying to look professional and calm. Make sure that they are business casual. Do not wear anything that will cover your face. You need to make sure that we can see you and that you look cleaned up and professional. Cameras show more than eyes sometimes, so you have to go that extra mile to make sure that you look professional. One of the things that I do personally is wear lipstick. I never wear lipstick in a normal day-to-day anything. I've never done so, never as a teacher or as a presenter. It's just not part of my habit. However, my skin tone is so pale that by the time I get natural and unnatural lighting on me for a recording, my face whites out and I describe myself as a light bulb with hair. Okay? So I have to go a little bit more extravagant with my makeup in order to emphasize my facial features so that you can see facial definition whenever I'm attempting to communicate. I wear lipstick so that my students with visual impairments can actually track and lip read with me a little bit more easier than you would in another context. Because again, with all the lighting, I completely wash out, so I have to do a little bit more in order for a camera to pick it up effectively. So make sure that you do that. So once you've thought about your posture and you've got your shoulders up and you're leaning forward and you're engaged, once you've thought about your clothing and we've already got the face and voice practice, you're working on connecting with that camera instead of your beautiful picture, and you've identified what amount of gestures are necessary. The last couple of items we need to talk about would be your recording background and then background noise. For your recording backgrounds, if you're using Zoom technology, you can put a virtual background in there that will cover everything behind you. So if you have life happening behind you, you can go to Zoom, please pick out something professional and just cover it up. So dirty room, who cares? Are you sitting on your bed? Can't tell. Just take the background out of the equation. I leave mine in as my actual living room because one, this is just my work office here. And if you've ever had a Zoom meeting with me, this is what it's looked like. And so I just keep it natural because I have the ability to do that in my house. However, if I had to present from a different location or another office, I would definitely use a virtual background. Another thing that you can do when you're thinking about your background is thinking about lighting. I intentionally positioned my desk and webcam so that I have a window over here and I have a lamp over here so that I can get lighting from both sides. You can see natural lighting side of my face, artificial lighting side of my face. I got a little bit of two-face going on here because there are two different tones of lighting. You need to make sure that we can see you. And again, it's very important to be careful about wearing hats or head coverings because if you're in a dark room with ambient lighting that's behind you, the lighting is behind you, you're going to get backlit, which means we're going to see a silhouette of you and not any of your features. Now, if you wear a head covering as part of a religious observance, then of course you are allowed to continue wearing that. But my encouragement is make sure as best you can that your lighting is there to emphasize your face. So if you are going to wear a head covering of some kind, then you might just have to move your camera around so that lighting can fall on your face and we can still see you. Other items to consider in your background would be background noise. As I've referenced in several of my videos, I have a large fish tank full of fish over here with a nonstop water filter. So there's always that sound of a waterfall in the background. And that's why I had to purchase headphones with a microphone because having a general microphone in front of me was picking up so much water noise, you couldn't hear me. So headphones, headset reduced that significantly. If you listen deeply enough, you can hear the water. But generally, this is what allows me to present and to be heard more effectively. For those of you who are going to try to record from a work environment, maybe that's the Wi-Fi that you're using, you will have to be exceptionally aware of the audio quality of your recording. I have had many students in the past who have had to use work Wi-Fi, and that's fine, but they recorded their presentations in a kitchen during a rush hour. I couldn't hear anything. And if I can't hear you, I can't grade you. I have also had students who have submitted recordings from locker rooms or gymnasiums where there's like 30 basketball players going on behind them. I can't hear you. I've had students who went outside to do their recordings because inside the house was too loud, but they were next to a major road, so all I could hear were the cars going by. That would be the situation at my house if I went outside. So you have to be very aware and to perform a listening assessment to judge where you can perform your best. Where will the least distractions be? Where is the best lighting? What is the strongest audio quality that you can do? And so you might have to rehearse multiple times in multiple locations before you find something that works. Give yourself time to do that. So, all in all, you should know that you need to make eye contact with the camera, not an outline or yourself. Connect with the camera and know your speech well enough to deliver 90% of it to the camera so that we do not get a presentation of you reading to yourself or us just watching you read. It's not interesting. You know by now that your face and your voice should match the wording and mood and tone of your presentation. Speed it up, slow it down, get it high, get it low. Whatever it is, change things up. You know that you should have a strong presentation posture, a business casual appearance, and you need to have a background assessment that allows your audio and lighting recordings to be strong. Now, stay in touch if you need anything at all. That is your crash course on virtual delivery. With enough practice, those nerves will go away. Have a good day.